Hey, my name is Joost de Valk. I'm the CEO of Joost, and I'm going to tell you a lot about Joost SEO. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the hidden features of Joost SEO. One of the things that we do when we develop this plugin is we make a lot of choices. We have a lot of choices about how to improve your site, how to do things the way we think they should be done. And not all of these translate into settings that you have to play with. We actually try to make as few settings as possible, and if we think that something should just always be on, it's always on. That's why we call it a hidden feature, because we see sometimes in comparisons with other products that people think that we don't have those features because we don't have a setting for it. Well, that's not true. We just do it for you. We do all the thinking, so you don't have to do the thinking about that. We call this choices, not settings. Now, let me give you a few examples of why we're doing that and give you a really good idea about, okay, so this is all the stuff that Joost s.e.o already does for me without me doing anything at all. The first thing that I think is the best example as well is a feature called Canonical. Canonical was introduced 6-7 years back by Google as the answer to a lot of questions from SEOs. We had problems like a product that could be in 3 different categories. A category for sweatshirts, a category for red sweatshirts, and a category for brand name / sweatshirts. And because of that, the product would be on 3 URLs too, because the category was reflected in the URL. But we only wanted one of these 3 URLs to rank in the search results. We didn't want people to be confused as to which one they should click at, and we didn't want Google to be confused as to which one they should use. That's why they introduced the Canonical. Canonical is a feature that lets you change that. It lets you say, okay, so of all the options available for this URL, that specific URL is the one you need. This evolved into a lot of different things. It evolved into a method of making sure that campaign tags and other things on your site are not indexed by search engines. So this evolved into something that needs to be on every page of your site. If you see this slide with a couple of problematic URLs, you'll see that there can be several versions of a URL that give the exact same content. We only want the top one to be indexed by Google, and we don't want Google to index all these other ones. Now, the best thing, of course, would be to not have all those other URLs, so Google wouldn't have to spider those. But the next best thing is having a canonical link on those pages pointing to the top URL, saying this is the URL that should be in the index. All the other ones, discount them and just count all of the links towards all of these versions towards that single version on top. This is why we do this by default. WordPress does this for single posts and pages, but not for any other URLs on your site. It doesn't do it for your homepage. It doesn't do it for categories. It doesn't do this for a lot of different types of URLs that you can have. We make sure that Joost SEO does this everywhere. So single posts and pages, your homepage, category archives, tag archives, date archives, author archives, whatever you can think of, all these different types of pages that WordPress has, we cover and we give you a canonical on that page. Now, if you're not a technical person, canonical can be very confusing. We understand that. And it can also be something that you really don't want to think about. So we don't make you think about it. We add it by default and we hide it. Now, if you're a developer and you think, I need to change this canonical somewhere, you can. We've added a WP_SEO_canonical filter specifically for that. So you can change the output of that canonical tag. But in 99.99% of cases, you will never need to do that. There is a feature for canonical in the meta box underneath on the edit posts or edit page screen. This is so you can change the canonical for that specific post or page to something else. For instance, Search Engine Journal, one of the biggest blogs in s.e.o, regularly reposts articles from Yoast.com on their site. They do this because they think that this is interesting to their readers, and we always get a lot of positive reactions to it, so it's probably right. But at that point, the same post is on their site as it is as on ours. So what they do when they publish that post is they set the canonical on that post to our original post. So in Google, our original post is the only one that's showing, but their visitors can still read that post on Search Engine Journal. This is why that feature is there. If you don't do anything with that box, there will still be a canonical and it will point to the proper URL for that post or page. Now related to this is another feature. It's called rel equals next and rel equals prev. Very boring actually, if you think about it. It's a method of indicating a paginated archive to search engines. So you've got an archive of posts in a certain category and it goes from page 1 to page 10. If you're on page 2, then it would indicate that, okay, with a link rel equals next tag in the heading of your site, nobody would ever see that other than people looking at the source of your site and search engines. It would indicate, okay, the next page is page 3 and the previous page is page 1 of this archive. We do this by default. WordPress does something slightly different. It only adds these tags on posts, and it adds these tags in such a way that we think is wrong. It adds it by adding a equals prev link to the previous post and an equals next link to the next post, but just in the way you publish them, nothing else. Well, we think that's totally wrong. So what we do, if the current post is paginated, in the WordPress way, you wouldn't know because WordPress doesn't give you any code for that. In our case, we fix that. It's also, what WordPress does, we think is slightly random. If you post 4 posts a day, are those 4 posts related? Would that really be the next post that you'd want someone to read? I don't think so. We would want to do that based on categories or something else. So we remove what WordPress does by default, and we add our own on paginated archives like I just explained. And if you have a paginated post, so you've divided the post into several pages, we also do it there. We don't give you options for this. There are filters to change this should you need to, but we don't give you options because we don't think that you could make any better decisions on this than we can, and we don't think that you'd ever want to change this. So it's a hidden feature. Well, let's go on to the next one. If you have a WordPress blog, very often you'll have a login link and you'll have a registration link to register on your site or to log into your WP admin section. That's not something that's very useful to a search engine because your search engine would never have to be on your admin pages. It will never need to register for your site. So what we do, we make sure that those links are no followed so that search engines will never follow those links. It's just a tiny tweak, but if those links appear on every page on your site, it can save a lot of Google action on your site that's absolutely unneeded. The last and final one that I want to discuss is something that's probably the most debatable of all these 4. In its webmaster guidelines, Google says that you have to no-index search results on your site. Google doesn't want a user to go from search results in Google to search results on your site because it thinks that's a bad user experience. What we actually do is we no-index them according to the Google Webmaster Guidelines, which means that if someone links to search results on your page, Google will still go to that page and follow all the links on that page and counts those links, but it will never show those search results in its own search results. By following Google's Webmaster Guidelines this strictly, there are some SEOs out there that say, yeah, but we want to do that regardless of what Google says. This is where it becomes problematic that we have over 4.5 million users. Over 6% of the entire web uses our software to optimize their site. So if we make changes that are not according to Google's guidelines, I usually get an email that is not very friendly. It just doesn't work that way. If you want to change it, you can, but you have to be a developer. There is no setting for it. I hope this explains to you why we have a lot of hidden features in our plugin and why not everything that we do has a setting. Over time, we will try and make more of these smart choices. That's it. Thank you.